What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. We're going to be talking some college football on this episode. Ohio State is getting crushed by the internet for making Matt Patricia their new defensive coordinator. I want to break down the pros and the cons of this hiring, how it could work out, why it could backfire big time in Ryan Day's face. Then we're just going to bounce around the Big 10 a little bit. I'm going to reveal the biggest secret that this conference is hiding. Bryce Underwood. I don't think that there's ever been more pressure on a player coming out of high school than what he's under right now. More money means higher expectations, more pressure, and less patience. And it's a pressure cooker over there in Ann Arbor. Lincoln Riley, y'all know I'm a huge fan, a huge believer in him, but there's no more excuses for him in 2025 at USC. He needs to start delivering some big time results because ever since his 11-win season in year one as the Trojans head coach, USC has regressed the last two seasons in the win column. They won 8 games in 2023. They had a 7-win season last year. He has to at least get the 9 or 10 wins, or else it might be time to move on. And then I want to give you guys a few quarterbacks from the transfer portal that are going to have a big impact this upcoming season. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, turn on post notifications so you stay alerted with everything that we drop. Check us out wherever you get your podcast from. Links in description and pinned comment below. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. Let's dive into it. Ohio State is making Matt Patricia their new defensive coordinator in replace of Jim Knowles. The internet is crushing them for this decision. I want to take a little bit of time instead of joining in on the party and slamming this move and actually break down the pros and cons of this hiring. What is the potential upside that could come out of this big potential gamble by Ryan Day? And how could it go wrong? And then at the end, I'm going to give my overall thoughts on how I feel this hire is going to turn out. Is it going to work? Is it going to fail? The pros. Ohio State is bringing in a respected defensive coordinator with a really good NFL pedigree. Matt Patricia had a lot of success when he was the play caller for the New England Patriots during a couple of their Super Bowl runs. They finished top 10 in points per game allowed, red zone defense. One thing about Ohio State that made their defense so great last year is how good they were in the red zone. As a matter of fact, they were so good on the goal line to the point where certain teams were scared to run it up the middle, even if it was just 1 or 2 yards out, due to how good their front was. That is the strength of a Matt Patricia coach defense. How good they are once they get inside the red area. I expect the red zone defense for the Buckeyes this year to be just as good as what we've seen them last year look like. Another good thing to like about this hire is Caleb Downs makes it a lot easier for Matt Patricia that has success calling plays on defense. Any defensive coordinator that has come from the Bill Belichick coaching tree loves versatile defensive backs. They aren't one of those coaching staffs that just sticks to a basic 3-4, 4-3 front. Normally, they like to run a lot of nickel packages as their base defenses because if they can get defensive backs that are not just good in coverage but can also be really effective against the run because they're really good tacklers, then you can move them around in so many different places. You can play them in nickel. You can use them as a dime linebacker in certain situations. Matt Patricia is going to have a lot of fun with a player of the caliber of Caleb Downs. This is debatably the best player in college football, and I only say debatably because you can say that Jeremiah Smith, who's on the same team, is the best player in college football. How do you have two of the best players in college football on the same team? That's crazy. And you give Matt Patricia, Caleb Downs, and all of the blue chip talent that they bring in from recruiting and out of the transfer portal to work with, he's going to be really effective getting the most out of this personnel. He knows football. If you listen to him on any of these podcasts, he actually has a personality. He's not going to be the head coach. That's the last pro of this move. You don't have to worry about him running this program into the dirt. Ryan Day is still running the show. He failed as a head coach when he was with the Detroit Lions, but he was a really good defensive coordinator. And certain coaches are just only cut out to be coordinators. They're not head coach material. Certain coaches can't handle the workload that comes with being the head man. Being the coordinator, all you have to worry about is just calling the plays. I don't expect Ohio State to make him recruit. He's not going to be there long term. This is an opportunity for him to redeem himself, boost his resume, and possibly get another shot being a defensive coordinator in the NFL again. Why this hire could backfire, though, we get into the cons of this hiring. Matt Patricia runs a conservative defense. He has the bend but don't break philosophy. He has no problem allowing opposing quarterbacks to get a lot of yards underneath with short, quick passes. And then once you get into the red zone area, that's when Matt Patricia starts to get in his bag. That's when his defenses are really at their peak. But the problem with that is how sustainable is that style of defense when you're going up against teams like Oregon, Penn State, potentially if you have to face a USC or whoever has a high-powered offense in this conference with good receivers. They're going to be able to expose that soft zone defense that he likes to run a lot of. And that's what separates him from Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick doesn't run a lot of zone coverage as much as what Matt Patricia runs. Matt Patricia doesn't run as much man as what Bill Belichick normally tends to. With Ohio State's corners, potentially they could be a lot worse than what they were last year. The cornerback play already was a little bit shaky. Egbinosa, if that's how you pronounce it, I apologize if I got that wrong, and Denzel Burke, they weren't that good. The defensive line, the front seven, helped make up for their average cornerback play since they didn't have to cover that long. This year, we're going to see a lot of new faces at corner. They are really good at safety, but we're going to see how they look in man coverage, how they look in zone. We're going to see if Ryan Day forces Matt Patricia to run a little bit more man than what he is accustomed to running. That's normally what the precipice of these Bill Belichick defenses have been built on. And the defense giving up so many easy yards in the passing game was attributed to the lack of pass rush that Matt Patricia defenses normally have. When he was the head coach of the Lions, they weren't really good getting after the quarterback. And as the defensive coordinator for the Patriots during a few years, they struggled to get after the quarterback. Ohio State always has really good edge rushers, really good interior defensive linemen. The talent won't be an issue, but could the scheme not maximize the talent of these players? Could it hold them back a little bit? We'll see. Overall, here's my thoughts on this hire. I like this move to hire Matt Patricia by Ohio State and Ryan Day. You're getting somebody that has a lot of experience in the NFL. We've seen Wink Martindale at your arch rival Michigan have a good amount of success being the defensive coordinator. college football is becoming more and more every day like the NFL. And when it comes to calling plays, a guy like Matt Patricia going up against these collegiate offenses is going to be slight work to him. He has seen it all. He's been coaching in the NFL for over 2 decades. He used to coach college ball 22 years ago at Syracuse as a graduate assistant. Ohio State already has the personnel. Now, Matt Patricia just has to put these players in the right spots to succeed. I don't expect that to be too hard for him. Ryan Day is still going to be overseeing the program. Bill Belichick disciples always tend to be bad head coaches, but they are really good coordinators. Brian Flores, for those of you guys who aren't familiar with him, he was a coordinator for the New England Patriots. He replaced Matt Patricia when he took the Lions head coaching job, and he was even better than what he was. He got a head coaching job. His defenses were good. He got fired, but now being the defensive coordinator of the Minnesota Vikings, he's one of the best DCs in the league, and they always have a top defense. If you hire somebody off Belichick's staff to coach a certain side of the ball, rather it be special teams, defense, offense, they're really good hires. They know that side of the ball really well. They understand situational football, and he doesn't need to recruit. Chip Kelly probably wasn't recruiting. This is an opportunity for Matt Patricia to rebuild his stock for the NFL, to get another opportunity to call plays at that level. And this is just the new reality of college football. This late into the offseason, you're going to be hard-pressed to lure any other bright young defensive coordinator candidate. You don't have a lot of time to do a full, fleshed-out search for your defensive coordinator at this point with spring ball just around the corner. You rather just get this out of the way. And Matt Patricia was a pretty safe hire. Ryan Day has dabbled with potentially hiring some former Bill Belichick assistants in the past. I don't know if you guys remember this, but he was going to make Bill O'Brien his offensive coordinator last year before he ultimately decided to take the Boston College job that he got offered at the last minute when their head coach left for Green Bay. After Bill O'Brien took the BC job, that's when he went and got Chip Kelly. He has a liking for these Belichick assistants for a certain reason. I trust Ryan Day. If he believes that Matt Patricia gives his defense the best shot to maintain elite status this year, I trust him. He just won a national championship. He has one of the best winning percentages of any active coach in all of FBS. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt with this hire. Even if it isn't good, he's such a great coach that he can still have a good season overcoming a bad hire. That's what elite coaches are able to do, and I don't expect nothing less from Ryan Day. I give my stamp of approval on this hire. I like Matt Patricia a lot as the defensive coordinator. I don't see this defense dropping off too much under. The Washington Huskies football program under head coach Jedd Fisch is the best kept secret in the Big Ten. The Big Ten is hiding to all of college football how bright the future of this program truly is. All everybody talks about is Oregon, USC, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, them being in the national championship conversation when the Huskies were just in the national championship 2 years ago with Kalen DeBoer. When Washington has hired the right head coaches, they have shown the ability to be a national title contender. Jedd Fisch has done a great job of turning around that Arizona program. You saw how badly that program has fallen off ever since he departed for this Washington job. And last season, in my opinion, Washington overachieved. Jedd Fisch took this job late during the coaching carousel. Right after the national championship is when he got this job. He wasn't able to get in a portal class from the winter cycle. He had to get a portal class from the second portal window. He had to, kind of get together with the players a little bit later, and things were a little bit late on schedule for him at Washington. And plus he had a roster that had no returning production from the previous team. You either had guys that left for the league, they went to the portal, they followed Kalen DeBoer. So for him to have won the amount of games that he did to make Washington Bowl eligible, is a testament to him being a really good, not just program builder, but a really good schematics coach. He's a coach that runs a really good NFL-style scheme that helps develop these players into potential NFL prospects. That's why when you look at some of the players that Arizona has had, that they've had go to the next level, they've been coached under Jedd Fisch. They're not all about looking for the blue chip talent. They're all about looking for guys that have NFL potential. Jedd Fisch is running Washington like it's an NFL team. And out of all of the college football programs that are out there, the ones that are the closest to resembling the NFL model, Washington is definitely in that conversation when it comes to being one of those programs that has a lot of influence from the pro game. Jedd Fisch is a hybrid head coach. Unlike most of these college coaches in the Big Ten, Jedd Fisch has had as much experience coaching in the league as he has coached collegiately. So he has the best of both worlds. And with him going about using Washington as a pipeline for the NFL, you come to us, we can develop you. It helps him out in recruiting. He's a really savvy recruiter. Washington recruits really well in the three most talent-rich states in all of America: California, Texas, and Florida. He has really good pipelines in all three of those states. That's why Washington finished with a top 25 recruiting class this past recruiting cycle. They also have really good facilities, a really strong NIL infrastructure. And about a year or two from now, Washington under Jedd Fisch is going to emerge as a contender for not just the Big Ten title, but also for the national championship. That's what the ceiling of this program is. Remember when they had Chris Peterson? They went to the college football playoffs one time when we were still back in the 4-team era. They produced a lot of NFL players. When you get the right head coach at Washington, a guy like a Jedd Fisch that is a really good recruiter, a great program builder, he always assembles a really good staff, you position yourself to be in the ranks of an Oregon. Kalen DeBoer, in only 2 years, quickly turned around this program when it was on the brink of being irrelevant after Jimmy Lake damn near ran it into the dirt. Washington made a great hire by getting Jedd Fisch, and the trajectory of this program is never talked about. That's why this is the best kept secret in the Big Ten. All the national media pays attention to is the top 4 teams in this conference. But Washington, within these next couple of years, when Jedd Fisch finally is able to get everything in from recruiting, he gets a few recruiting cycles in, he gets those players on into their second, third seasons, and he can get some more good portal classes in. Look out for Washington, because Jedd Fisch does a really good job at developing, evaluating talent. This is one of the more underrated coaches in college football. He's going to be a hot commodity come the end of this year if any of those Florida head coaching jobs open up. That's where he's rumored to want to be. Washington, the thing that keeps them from being a consistent title contender is that they can never maintain a great head coach for long. Chris Peterson retired. Kalen DeBoer left for Alabama. How can you turn that down? Jedd Fisch, hopefully you can keep him. Look out for Washington in the near future. They got a really good quarterback that's going to have a breakout season this year as well. I just love what Jedd Fisch is turning Washington into. I don't believe there's been a single player out of high school that's been under more pressure than what Bryce Underwood is going to be these next couple of years in the pressure cooker that is Ann Arbor, Michigan at the moment. Michigan gave him a godfather-like offer. They gave him an offer that he couldn't refuse, around 10 to 12 million to flip his commitment from LSU. The pressure, the expectations are going to be at an all-time high for Bryce Underwood. Is he going to bend or fold? Is he going to be able to rise above these high expectations? Is he going to actually be able to deliver upon them? If Bryce Underwood doesn't pan out, it's not going to be anything that's going to halt his career entirely that he can't bounce back from. Remember when Dante Moore went to UCLA instead of Oregon? He flamed out quickly under Chip Kelly as a true freshman. He sat this past season behind Dylan Gabriel at Oregon after he transferred there. He's going to be pretty good. Bryce Underwood, hell, if he doesn't play well, he can say, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and transfer to the school I initially was going to play for in the first place. He doesn't really have too much to lose, but you definitely want to perform when you're from the area. Nobody wants to look bad in front of people that they grew up with. Nobody wants to look bad in front of their family and friends. But there's more pressure on Michigan, Sharon Moore, this coaching staff, and this program to not only develop Bryce Underwood, but to also be able to win and win big with him. I am a huge believer in Sharon Moore. Jim Harbaugh has a habit of leaving places better than what he found them. When he left Stanford, he gave them David Shaw, and Stanford was a powerhouse on the West Coast for a lot of the 2010s under David Shaw when he was the head coach. Sharon Moore, he kind of concerned me the first half of last season, but the second half he turned it around. You upset Ohio State, you upset Alabama in that bowl game. You're able to pull off this big time flip, and you also have a really strong recruiting class as well. It looks like the trajectory of Michigan is trending up under Sharon Moore. And it's funny how just 2 games has completely changed our entire opinion for how we view Sharon Moore as a head coach. But he fired his offensive coordinator. He's bringing in a new one. This has to work out with Bryce Underwood, because if it doesn't, not only could it entirely alter the future of Michigan football, but he possibly could be out of a job. If Bryce Underwood just stinks it up, maybe this is just a 5-6 win team at best. And then if you can't develop a 6-star recruit like a Bryce Underwood, that's essentially what he is, then how are you ever going to be able to lure any other quarterback of this magnitude? Just because you got money doesn't mean you can just get any quarterback that you want. Certain quarterbacks are getting the same kind of money anywhere. Certain teams are willing to break the bank to pay for a certain quarterback that they really, really believe in. Bryce Underwood, you gave him an offer that he couldn't refuse. And you got to make sure that you get the most out of your money. You are now playing the same game that Ohio State is playing now, which is a huge reason why you can continue to dominate them in the game. But if this doesn't work out, this could have massive negative ramifications on this program. This is a local kid. He's beloved by this state. Everybody was really hyped up when he made this flip, even though they knew the motivations behind it. Underwood's development is going to determine the fate of Michigan post Jim Harbaugh. Sharon Moore, he's built up a ton of good faith within a very small time within this Michigan program. But if this doesn't work out with Bryce Underwood, it's not going to look pretty. I don't remember a situation in all my years watching and covering college football where you've had a recruit that had so much hype, that had so much pressure, and it's because of the NIL era. NIL has completely changed the game. Is he capable of being able to live up to the high expectations? Absolutely. You expect him to start. If he doesn't start, you're going to be saying, damn, if he is so good and we dished out all this money to get him, why was he able to win the quarterback competition in spring and fall camp? You'll be waving a red flag then. If he starts and he struggles early, you'll be waving a red flag. With more money comes less patience. The patience that you're going to have for a quarterback that gets this much money and has this much prestige coming out of high school is going to be very thin compared to any other quarterback that you would have gotten. Like the quarterback transfer that they got from Fresno State, you know, the expectations for him aren't going to be as high as what they are for Bryce Underwood. It's just with Bryce Underwood being 17 years old, he's built to handle this. I believe he can live up to the hype. I mean, you look at him, he's not 17 years old. To me, he looks like he's 24 years old. These up-and-coming high schoolers that are juniors and seniors at 16, 17 years old because they're graduating early, I don't know what their parents are feeding them at an early age now, but these kids are developing very fast. He's only 17. They say that you don't fully develop until you're 20 years old or around your early 20s. That's when you stop growing. He still has room to grow an inch or two. And he could max out a lot more when it comes to his weight, his athleticism. I mean, the potential and talent with Bryce Underwood is limitless. That's why the pressure is so high on Michigan to develop him. If he works out and he's good right away, that's what you expect him to be. I mean, 10, 12 million, that's more than what a lot of rookies are getting paid. I'm expecting a big instant impact. And anybody that's saying otherwise, I kind of got to call you a liar. Let's not act like you're not expecting Bryce Underwood to be better than any other true freshman that you've ever seen play. That's why the pressure is on. It's a pressure cooker down there in Ann Arbor. This is the most expensive and the most pressured quarterback in the history of college football. Lincoln Riley is approaching his 4th season at USC as the head coach, and there is no more excuses for him anymore. It's time for him to deliver on the massive changes that he has made to this program over the last couple of seasons. They've been saying that he's had to rebuild these last couple of years because initially the program that he inherited when he took over for Clay Helton was a dumpster fire. It was lacking the necessary talent needed to compete for a national championship. It was going to be a few years before the Trojans were ready to be a potential contender for the playoffs. Well, they end up overachieving in year one with Caleb Williams winning the Heisman Trophy under Lincoln Riley, his first season as the head coach. They win 11 games, and ever since then, they've seen a gradual decrease in the win column. You go from 11 to 8 wins in year 2 to 7 wins in year 3. In year 4, the rebuild has to be over. You got to deliver if you're Lincoln Riley in 2025 for USC. Over the last couple of years, you have made an all-out commitment to prioritizing being more physical, emphasizing weight gain, strength and conditioning, punishing players for not meeting certain weight gain requirements. The defense, you bring in D'Anton Lynn, that's your defensive coordinator. And year 1 last year, under D'Anton Lynn, this was a top 50 defense. Imagine the big leap this defense is going to make in year 2 under D'Anton Lynn calling plays on this side of the ball. This should be a top 25 defense. They have brought in some big-time recruits on the defense side of the football. Guys like Cameron Fountain, I believe he's going to be one of their better players on defense this year. He should be a really good pass rusher. He should be a dominant force when it comes to getting after the quarterback. What they're bringing in out of the transfer portal should solidify them on the line of scrimmage, on the defensive line and the offensive line. Oregon stole one of their best offensive linemen, but hopefully they bring in somebody that can replace them. And overall, we know Lincoln Riley always has competent quarterback play. Miller Moss wasn't crappy. You know, he was pretty good for what you get out of most quarterbacks in college football. He was a solid quarterback. He just wasn't a good quarterback. That was the problem with him. Lincoln Riley expects good to great, not okay. With what he has coming in Mavia, hopefully I got that right, the potential with him is limitless. He has a very strong arm. He's a really great athlete. If he can just lower his interceptions, this offense can be really dynamic. They got 2 really good receivers. They got a ton of depth at that position. At running back, Lincoln Riley always gets it right with that position. This is a team that has the capability of being a potential 11th, 10th, or 12th seed in the CFP this year if everything goes right. USC won 7 games last year, but there were 2-3 losses that they left on the table, that they lost due to one possession collapses. Remember how they lost to Michigan? How Michigan just had a ground and pound 2-minute game-winning drive to win it on them? How they choked against Maryland? That was embarrassing. They almost had an upset win over Penn State, but they collapsed in the second half. There were some games that USC left on the table. If you can win those close games this year, this easily is a 9-10 win team. Lincoln Riley is a good coach. He's shown that he can win at the highest level. He won at Oklahoma. He led them to Big 12 titles. He led them to appearances in the CFP on several occasions there. We think of USC football as being a national championship contender at their peak. We think about the golden era when they had Pete Carroll as the head coach, Carson Palmer, Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart. They were just a football factory. Can Lincoln Riley get USC back to that point? Is this program even capable of being able to get back to that level? The same question that we're asking about USC right now is the same one we have about Miami under Mario Cristobal. But there's no more excuses for Lincoln Riley. You got a good foundation with the good coaching staff that you have on defense, all of the players that you have on that side of the ball that are more talented than what you've had these previous 2 years. You know, offensively, the talent's there for you to have a really productive season on that side of the ball as well. Everything is perfectly aligned for USC to go on a run this year. They should win 9 to 10 games, but if not, then maybe it's time for USC to move on. But it's time for him to produce. Everything's there. It's time for all of these changes that Lincoln Riley has made to start paying off on the field in the W column. I want to reveal a few quarterbacks from the transfer portal that are going to have huge impacts for their new teams this upcoming college football season. Look out for these guys. You could see them in the college football playoffs potentially. Carson Beck, he was the number 1 rated quarterback overall from this past cycle. He transfers from Georgia to Miami in a shocking move. This was one of the huge portal surprises of this offseason because he still is one of the best quarterbacks in college football. Yeah, he had a drop off in production last year compared to how he looked in 2023, but that wasn't necessarily all his fault. His receivers, they struggled to catch the football. They were one of the top teams in the country in drops. The offensive line wasn't as good as what we normally have seen out of Georgia from that unit in the past. Georgia just relied on Carson Beck to carry an offense that had so many problems and so many limitations. Him going to Miami, he's walking into a better situation than what he had at Georgia in 2024. Miami has a loaded wide receiver room. You got one of the best offensive lines in college football. They're stacked at running back. He has a king's ransom at Miami, and he has an easy path to redeeming himself as an NFL draft prospect and putting himself back into the first round discussion of the 2026 NFL draft. We saw what Mario Cristobal and Shannon Dawson did in 1 year of Cam Ward. Carson Beck now is going into a tailor-made situation for him to dominate and have a big-time season at Miami. He could be responsible for truly bringing back the U. He could get them to the ACC title game potentially, the college football playoffs, and he could be a hero. He could be remembered more in Miami football lore than what Cam Ward is, although he may not be the same caliber of talent that Cam Ward is. Kaidon Salter going from Liberty to Colorado was a huge get for Coach Prime and the Buffs. If they can get the 2023 version of Kaidon Salter when he had 32 touchdowns through the air and 12 on the ground, over 1,000 rushing yards, he was the best player in Conference USA. He led Liberty to the Conference USA title game and the appearance in the New Year's Six Bowl. We could see Colorado be a playoff team if we see the 2023 version of Kaidon Salter return this year. We know that Colorado is going to have a good group of wide receivers. This should be the best play that they have gotten out of their offensive line in the 3 years that Coach Prime has been in Boulder. They just recently hired Marshall Faulk as their running back coach. The ground game is going to improve, not just with the hiring of Marshall Faulk, but with Kaidon Salter. He's going to help impact the ground game in a way that we were not really able to see Shedeur Sanders impact the rushing game. You know, Shedeur Sanders is not the athlete that Kaidon Salter is. There just is so much that Kaidon Salter brings to this Colorado offense that could make him a potential dark horse Heisman contender. He showed that when he has a really good supporting cast around him, he's in the right system, in the right situation, he can deliver big-time results. And he was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. He initially started off at Tennessee. He got into some off-the-field troubles that forced him to transfer. He ends up at Liberty, and he's been one of the better quarterbacks in the group of five the last 2 seasons that he's been a starter at Liberty. He's battling out with Julian Lewis for the QB1 job. I expect him to win that. This is his job to lose. Expect Kaidon Salter to have a big-time season at Colorado with everything that they have around him at receiver, running back on the offensive line. John Mateer, in my opinion, was the best quarterback out of the winter transfer portal cycle. He was putting up insane numbers at Washington State. He follows his offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, from Wazoo to Norman. I expect him to not just be a Heisman finalist this year, but to have the same impact on Oklahoma that Cam Ward had on Miami in 2024. Oklahoma has a really good group of wide receivers. The offensive line should be improved compared to how they looked last year. Last year was just a complete rebuild. this is a situation where Oklahoma could be one of those teams that benefits off getting a big time pickup out of the transfer portal at quarterback, and it can completely change everything for their program. John Mateer is my favorite quarterback in college football right now. I might be a little bit biased, but he's going to have a big time impact on Oklahoma. Brent Venables, he showed last year he can coach up an elite defense. Now you got the offense figured out. Oklahoma, I have them making it to the college football playoffs this year, and John Mateer is a huge reason why. And lastly, we got Thomas Castellanos, who transfers from Boston College to Florida State. Florida State had the second worst season in the history of their program last year. The quarterback play being a tragedy was a huge reason why. With Thomas Castellanos, you should get way more stable quarterback play. Him being in Gus Malzahn's system is going to set him up to have a big time season for the Seminoles, where they should have a major bounce back year. They got better receivers. The offensive line should be way better. He's also going to help improve what was the worst rushing attack in all of college football last season. Out of 132 FBS programs, Florida State was the worst of them all when it came to running the football. I don't know what happened with him to get benched at Boston College, because he didn't play that bad. He had a touchdown ratio of 18-4 or 18-5. Normally when somebody is producing at that high of a level, you don't see them get benched that often. Florida State got a really underrated pickup out of the portal with him at center. Their floor is 6 wins. Their ceiling, maybe we could see them right back in the ACC championship game. If you can get the quarterback right and you can bring in some solid pieces around them and you got a few good recruiting classes, you can win a weak conference like the ACC and the Big 12 as long as you got competent quarterback play, and that's what Castellanos is going to give the Seminoles in 2025. These are the 4 transfer quarterbacks that are going to have the biggest impacts in 2025 that you need to be on the lookout for.